Charlie Kirk, my friend, is dead. And he was publicly executed. I want to make that clear. Charlie Kirk was publicly executed.
Could Candace Owens land in jail for exposing what she says she knows about Charlie Kirk's assassination? Well, some have been concerned about her safety. She took a break just recently, publicly announced a 10-day break, and people have been very concerned that she was unalived because she's challenging the narrative around her friend's premature death.
On the cross, our Savior said, "Father, forgive them, for they not know what they do." I forgive him.
The world watched through thousands of live streams as the moment unfolded. A bright afternoon turning into chaos and a camera feed cutting to black. Within hours, headlines began flooding every major network, declaring that Charlie Kirk had died following a serious incident at Utah Valley University. But to millions online, this wasn't just another tragedy. It was the beginning of something much larger, a digital battlefield where grief, suspicion, and influence collided in real time. At the center of it all were two women, Erika Kirk, Charlie's widow, calm and composed, and Candace Owens, his former colleague who refused to stay silent. Their words, their expressions, and their choices would come to define how the world remembered that day. Erika's first public statement came quietly, her voice trembling yet steady as she quoted scripture, saying that Christ had once asked for forgiveness for those who wronged him. "That man, that young man," she said softly, "I forgive him." Her forgiveness shocked millions who expected anger or blame. In a world built on outrage, Erika's peace felt almost unnatural. Yet while she spoke of mercy, Candace Owens began asking questions, the kind of questions that turn sympathy into skepticism. How did this happen? Why did it happen so suddenly? And why were the details emerging so cleanly, as if they were written before the event itself? According to the official report from federal investigators, the sequence of events was clear. The person responsible was identified as Tyler James Robinson, a 22-year-old from St. George, Utah. Robinson was described as a gifted student who once maintained a perfect grade point average in his engineering courses before dropping out and disappearing into obscure online communities. On the morning of September 10th, Robinson allegedly drove a gray Dodge Challenger to the Utah Valley University campus. Hidden in his backpack was a modified Mauser rifle, an antique weapon said to have been passed down through his family. Around noon, as the crowd gathered to hear Charlie speak, an explosion echoed across the event grounds. The camera shook violently, and within seconds the live feed went black. When the stream returned, chaos had taken over. People were running, security shouted for everyone to take cover, and within minutes the news broke that Charlie Kirk had collapsed. Robinson fled the scene, but reportedly left behind personal items later matched to his DNA. 33 hours later, after his family contacted a local pastor, Robinson surrendered to the authorities. The FBI called it a tragic but simple story. One man, one act of violence, one victim. Case closed. But the public wasn't ready to accept that. The footage from that day had already spread across the internet, shared by millions, analyzed frame by frame. Online commentators slowed down the video, watching each flicker of movement, each flash of light. Some claimed the sound of the gunshot didn't match the echo that followed. Others pointed out the strange angle of the debris, suggesting that the shot came from a completely different direction than the official report stated. The rifle itself raised questions. Why would a trained science student choose an outdated, heavy weapon instead of something modern? It seemed impractical, almost theatrical, as if it were chosen for the symbolism rather than the act itself. Security experts weighed in, questioning how someone carrying a weapon of that size could have passed through multiple checkpoints, cameras, and drone surveillance. Every element of the story appeared too convenient, too precise, as if it had been scripted to fit a single conclusion. Within hours, social media turned into a storm of accusations and theories. Hashtags demanding answers began trending worldwide. Digital investigators dissected the official footage, claiming that certain frames had been altered, that the shadows didn't align, that the sound of panic seemed artificially amplified. Even mainstream commentators began admitting that something about the entire sequence felt wrong. As the video spread, the phrase "too perfect to be true" became the heartbeat of the online movement. Viewers felt manipulated, as if they were being fed an edited version of the truth. It wasn't just about what happened, it was about how the story was told. The smoothness of the narrative, the speed of the investigation, and the emotionless precision of every press release began to raise deeper doubts. People no longer saw a random act of violence, they saw orchestration. They saw control, and as the questions grew louder, attention turned away from the alleged shooter and toward those standing closest to Charlie Kirk. Erika Kirk's calmness, once praised as grace, began to look to some like detachment. Candace Owens, on the other hand, appeared increasingly determined to uncover what she believed had been buried beneath the official version of events. The divide between forgiveness and suspicion became the core of the story. One woman held her silence, and the other demanded the truth. The internet had chosen its sides, and the stage was set for a confrontation that would blur the line between faith and deception. As the dust settled in the days following the tragedy, the world tried to move on, but Candace Owens refused to let the silence win. She had known Charlie Kirk for years, both as an ally and at times a rival, and something about the official explanation gnawed at her. She began piecing together fragments of information, interviews, security logs, and digital files that didn't fit the narrative. Every time she spoke publicly, her tone became more defiant. "We're being told a story," she said during one of her live streams, her voice sharp and unwavering. "But stories can be written, rewritten, and edited to fit an agenda. Truth doesn't come wrapped in press statements." Her words spread fast. What had once been a fringe conversation suddenly became mainstream. Clips of Candace's commentary were reposted across multiple platforms, and viewers who had initially dismissed her questions began to reconsider. At the same time, Erika Kirk's public presence took a different turn. While the internet dissected her every move, she seemed untouched by the noise. She appeared at memorial events, her voice calm, her expression unreadable. Charlie believed in purpose. She told an audience of supporters. Even in tragedy, there is something greater unfolding. To her followers, it was a testament of faith. To her critics, it sounded rehearsed. Every sentence she spoke was replayed online and analyzed as if it held a hidden confession. Her posture, her pauses, her perfectly composed tone, nothing escaped scrutiny. Some claimed that her behavior reflected strength. Others whispered that it reflected knowledge. Candace continued digging, tracing timelines that contradicted what authorities had shared. She discovered that several surveillance cameras on the university grounds had gone offline minutes before the explosion. When footage resurfaced, it appeared partially corrupted, with timestamps missing. Candace demanded to know why. The agency responsible for campus security claimed it was a data sync issue, but to her, it was more than coincidence. It was a cover-up. She began to speak about it more openly, questioning not only the investigation, but those who had accepted it without hesitation. And each time she spoke, her tone became sharper, her conviction stronger. Erika's silence became the perfect backdrop for suspicion. Online forums turned her calm demeanor into a symbol of conspiracy. People compared her interviews to old footage, analyzing micro-expressions, searching for inconsistencies in her words. Entire YouTube channels appeared overnight, dedicated to decoding her statements. Every smile was treated as evidence, every tear as performance. Erika, who once represented faith and restraint, became the unwilling face of a mystery she never addressed directly. She had forgiven her husband's killer in public, but she never once questioned the narrative behind his death. That absence of curiosity began to sound to some like complicity. The media fueled the divide. News anchors invited both voices onto their platforms, setting up heated debates that blurred the line between fact and speculation. Candace spoke with fire, her words heavy with accusation. Erika remained poised, responding with scripture, empathy, and patience. The contrast was magnetic. Millions watched as two women who had once shared admiration for the same man became symbols of two opposing forces: truth versus trust, defiance versus faith. What had begun as a tragedy evolved into a global spectacle. Clips of their exchanges racked up millions of views. Memes, headlines, and reaction videos flooded every platform. The public no longer saw them as individuals, but as representatives of a larger question. Should we believe what we're told, or should we question everything we see? Behind the scenes, however, things grew darker. Leaked emails suggested that someone within the investigation team had contacted a media agency before the official report was even released. Anonymous messages began circulating in online communities, claiming that the weapon used in the incident was never officially recovered, that the evidence was reconstructed for presentation. Candace referenced these claims without revealing her sources, insisting that truth always leaves a trace. Her critics called her reckless. Her supporters called her brave. The more she spoke, the more pressure she faced, but the momentum was unstoppable. Meanwhile, Erika withdrew further from public life. She canceled interviews, avoided social events, and refused to respond to any of Candace's public challenges. For weeks, she was silent, until one evening she appeared unexpectedly on a small Christian broadcast. Her eyes looked tired but resolved. She spoke softly about faith being tested by the cruelty of the world, about how God's plan was not meant to be understood but accepted. It sounded like closure, but to many, it felt like retreat. The timing of her appearance raised more questions than it answered. The divide between the two women became a global obsession. To one side, Erika represented Grace, a widow clinging to her beliefs in the face of immense loss. To the other, she was a symbol of secrecy, someone who knew more than she was willing to admit. Candace stood as her mirror opposite, loud, relentless, and unafraid to offend. The collision of their personalities became a kind of modern mythology, replayed endlessly in clips and commentary. And through it all, the truth remained buried under layers of emotion, speculation, and media manipulation. What no one noticed at first was the subtle change in tone coming from those who once defended the official story. Journalists began to backtrack, hinting that certain details of the report might have been oversimplified. A few insiders leaked that private meetings had taken place between investigators and university officials before the public statement was released. The internet exploded again. Candace claimed vindication, saying she had warned everyone from the start. Erika, when asked to comment, simply said, "I trust in God's timing." Her words, meant to close the conversation, only deepened the mystery. By the end of the second month, what had started as a singular tragedy had transformed into something unrecognizable. People no longer remembered the event itself, only the debate it caused. Candace Owens had become both hero and villain. Erika Kirk had become both saint and suspect, and somewhere between faith and doubt, the truth about Charlie Kirk's death remained hidden, waiting for the moment when the right piece of evidence would force it to the surface. Weeks turned into months, and what was once a conversation about tragedy became a storm about truth. Candace Owens no longer appeared merely as a commentator. She had become an investigator in her own right. Her latest broadcast opened with a chilling line, "I think Erika knows more than she's ever said out loud." The words rippled across social media like a shockwave. Within hours, the clip had been shared millions of times, dissected by pundits, and clipped into reaction videos. Some called it slander, others called it courage. Candace didn't back down. She claimed to have received documents, encrypted files, and testimonies from unnamed insiders connected to the original investigation. The files were labeled Echo, and though she didn't show their contents publicly, she described what they allegedly revealed: missing surveillance footage, altered timestamps, and inconsistencies in forensic reports. People online began to wonder if the truth had been manipulated before it ever reached the public. Every detail Candace mentioned reignited the collective suspicion. Suddenly, the story wasn't about one man's death, but about how deeply information could be controlled. Independent journalists began reaching out to her, offering to collaborate, while others accused her of exploiting grief for attention. Candace responded coldly, insisting that her motives were pure. "I'm not here to entertain you," she said during one heated stream. "I'm here to wake you up." Those words became a rallying cry across the internet. Meanwhile, Erika Kirk broke her silence once again, but not in the way anyone expected. She appeared on a primetime interview, sitting beneath soft lights, her face calm but guarded. The host asked her directly if she had seen the files Candace claimed to have. Her eyes shifted slightly, and then she smiled faintly before saying, "Grief makes people desperate for meaning. I understand why she's searching, but I have nothing to hide." The clip went viral immediately. Some viewers called it the statement of an innocent woman. Others said her calmness was calculated. Within hours, social media split again, with one half defending her faith and the other accusing her of deception. The lines between truth and performance blurred completely. Behind the public chaos, quiet movements were taking place. Investigative outlets began digging into the details Candace had dropped. They discovered that the original evidence log contained several gaps. Key surveillance drives had been marked as archived only 3 hours after the incident, a timeline that made no sense. Some of the archived data was reportedly missing or overwritten. Whispers of tampering grew louder. Former law enforcement consultants admitted that certain tests on the recovered weapon had never been publicly disclosed. The FBI refused to comment further. What had been labeled a closed case was now cracking open again. Candace took this as validation. She released fragments of what she called secondary evidence, claiming it was obtained from an anonymous source close to the case. The files showed inconsistencies in witness statements, timestamps that overlapped incorrectly, and an audio clip of an unknown voice saying, "We're clear. Cut the feed." The authenticity of the clip was never verified, but it spread across the internet like wildfire. The phrase "cut the feed" became symbolic, a digital shorthand for any situation where people felt truth was being silenced. It appeared in posts, art, graffiti, even protest signs. The tragedy had evolved into a movement. Erika remained quiet through most of it, staying out of sight, until one unexpected moment changed everything. A video surfaced showing her at a private memorial service, speaking to a small group of close friends. The clip, likely recorded without her knowledge, showed her saying that she believed not everything that happened that day was an accident. Those words, whispered in grief, reignited the storm. The internet exploded with theories, each one claiming to have uncovered the real meaning behind her words. Candace reacted within hours, posting a video titled, "She Finally Said It." Her tone was both triumphant and somber. "They called me crazy," she said, staring straight into the camera. "They said I was inventing things, but now even Erika can't deny it. Something about that day was never right." The controversy consumed everything it touched. News networks dedicated entire segments to analyzing their feud. Former colleagues of both women took sides, either defending Erika's privacy or applauding Candace's persistence. Protesters appeared outside the courthouse demanding the case be reopened. Hashtags calling for justice trended for weeks. The investigation was officially revisited, but the results that followed only deepened the confusion. Authorities confirmed that some data had indeed been misplaced, but denied any intentional wrongdoing. Their statements were vague, their tone defensive. Public trust eroded further. For many, it was no longer about what could be proven, but about what could no longer be believed. As months passed, the story faded from the headlines, but not from memory. The internet still debated it in fragments. Screenshots, theories, podcasts, clips recycled endlessly. Erika Kirk eventually disappeared from public life, moving away from the constant noise and speculation. Some said she left the country. Others claimed she joined a private faith retreat. Candace, meanwhile, kept talking. She turned her investigation into a series, claiming she was still uncovering new evidence. Her tone softened over time. less anger, more reflection. In one of her last videos on the subject, she looked directly at the camera and said, "Maybe we'll never know everything, but at least we didn't pretend not to ask." That line resonated across audiences like an echo. The story that began with a single violent act had transformed into a mirror reflecting the chaos of the modern world, a place where facts and feelings fought for dominance, where forgiveness could look like guilt, and where truth was no longer something found but something constructed. For Erika, the silence became her shield. For Candace, the search became her purpose. And for the millions watching, it became a reminder that sometimes the story we're told is only a fragment of the truth waiting in the spaces between what's said and what's left unsaid. In the end, no definitive conclusion ever emerged. The case remained open in the court of public opinion, its files sealed but its questions alive. What began as tragedy ended as a mystery that defined an era. A clash between faith and skepticism, love and loss, forgiveness and fury. Somewhere, perhaps, the truth still exists, buried beneath the noise, waiting for the day when someone brave enough to face it will finally bring it into the light.